Okay, so now that we have our players dying and respawning, obviously we don't want them to just take one hit and die the whole time. That does not make for a fun game if you're just running around and you get hit without even really knowing what's going on and you're instantly dead. So what we want to do is start adding some damage to our guns when we're shooting, and also make it so that when our player gets shot that they lose some health and things like that. So to do that, what we're going to do first of all is add the damage amount to our guns themselves. So let's go into our scripts folder. I'm going to go to my gun script, and in here I'm just going to add, just below our muzzle flash, a public int value for shot damage. And we're just using int values because we're just going to use whole numbers for our player's health system in general. So let me just save that, and then we're going to jump back into Unity, and we're going to go to our player once that compiles. Player. And I'm going to go to each gun. So my pistol, I'm going to say a shot damage of 25. Machine gun will have 15. And we'll say our rifle will be 35. Say. Let's bump that up even higher. We'll say 50 for our rifle. And our players are all going to have 100 health by default. So basically, your rifle will take 2 shots. Your pistol will take 4 shots. And machine gun will take 7 shots, basically, to kill a player. So with that done, then let's go to our scripts, and we'll go to our player controller, and we're going to go up to the top here, and we're going to add, first of all, a public int value for max health. So this is going to be the maximum amount of health we can have, which is going to be set to be equal to 100 by default. Obviously you can play around and do whatever values you want in your own game, of course. I'm going to have a private int value then called current health that we're going to use to keep track of how much health we actually have. So obviously if we're going to use this health system, we need to do damage whenever we fire our gun. So if we scroll back down near the bottom where we have our shoot function doing all this stuff here, then we have our deal damage function. So into this we're going to need to take in a value. So we're going to need to take in an int value that we'll call damage amount. And then we're going to pass that same value on to the take damage function. Because remember, the deal damage is what's being handled as an RPC. And then we're going to do any calculations and stuff on this particular character when we're in the take damage function. So now take damage is looking for another variable. So we're going to pass on the damage amount that we received into this variable, and we're going to pass it back onto the next one. But one thing that's really important to note, when we added an extra int here for the damage amount, we immediately got an error here under this one saying, hey, this should take in 2 values here. But when we do the same thing to the deal damage here, you should notice that there's no other errors in your script at the moment. If you scroll up here, the RPC here doesn't automatically know how many variables it should be passing in. If you try and run the game now, when it gets to the point where it's trying to do a deal damage RPC, it'll cause an error because it should be looking for 2 values, but we're only passing in 1. So we're going to add another variable here because, first of all, we're passing in the damager into this first slot, and then the second slot is the damage amount. And so the damage amount is going to be from our all guns list, whatever selected gun we have, dot shot damage. So that will pass that information into our deal damage. Then when we get damage dealt to us, it'll go into our take damage function here. And then in here, we're going to say, first of all, whatever our current health is, we're going to take away the damage amount that got sent in. So whatever amount of damage there is, take that away from our current health. And then we'll say if our current health is less than or equal to 0, then we'll wrap all this stuff down here in this. We'll say we want to die. Obviously, we'll also make sure that our current health doesn't actually go below 0 at any point, because we're going to want to display this information to the player in a little bit as well. But now we have our current health being set to 0 and our player spawner die function being sent out. And that's pretty much it for our damage system. So let's jump back into the game. We'll let that compile. And on my player, where are we? Resources, player, here we go. We should see that now we have a maximum health of 100. So if I go ahead and build the game, so let's build and run the game. And let's go ahead and start up the test room. Set our name, find a room. Let's start the game. So now, if we can go find that player, actually we'll leave our main player there. Let's go over here at the moment. So I'm going to take a couple of shots at our player. Oh, no, it did instant death to me. That shouldn't have happened. Let's see what's going on here. Let's go over and find our player again. Oh, of course. Aha, I did a little bit of a silly thing here. Let's go back into our script. So we set up, if we go back up to the top here, we set up our current health and we set up our maximum health. But of course, our current health by default is just 0. We have no health when the game actually starts. So in our start function here, we're going to say our current health is equal to our max health. So that means at the start of the player coming into existence, it will set its current health to be 100. Bit of a slight omission there, but that's okay. So I'll go ahead and rebuild and I'll jump into our game running again. Okay, so we have a player over here. This time we'll take a few shots. And what I wanted to do last time was we saw that the player didn't die. So let's go over here and we'll take a look at which player is ours. Now I have it on I have it on normal, so I want to put it on the debug view. So let's go, first of all, make sure which one we have selected. Where is our photon view? Oh yeah, we want to be in normal view, sorry, just for this moment. Yeah, okay, so this one that we have selected here is our one. So if we go here to our player controller and switch back to debug, we should be able to see on our player controller down here, our current health is 55. So let's take another shot and see how that changes. So one more shot, now it's down to 40, 25, down to 10, and then finally we kill them and the player is destroyed. So perfect, we now have that damage system working in our game and allows us to actually keep track of how much damage our player has and what they're doing in the game.